Every year, thousands of Indians pay homage to the memory of the man they call the father of their nation, Mahatma Gandhi. During his life, he pioneered a philosophy of non-violent protest, which continues to influence people across the world.
We've got all these protest movements in Britain today, anti-roads, anti-nuclear weapons, against the arms trade, and all the people involved in these struggles are using non-violence. It's a direct tradition from Gandhi.
But he was an unusual political leader, a man who lived a simple and religious life and prided himself on owning nothing except the clothes he stood up in. Delhi, the capital of India, where the signs of British rule can still be seen. For nearly 130 years, India was the jewel in the crown of the British Empire, a source of enormous wealth and raw materials. Large parts of the country were administered by local princes or maharajas, who governed in cooperation with the British. They enjoyed the trappings of power, even if they didn't have much. It was in one of these princely states, Porbandar, that Gandhi was born in 1869. His father was the local administrator. Gandhi was brought up in a prosperous, educated and ambitious family. When he was 18, he was sent to Britain to train as a lawyer, the fast track to a good job in the British Empire. In London, he gained an unexpected notoriety.
He did tell me that the fact that he didn't drink made him popular for the only time with the British in his whole life, because at the Middle Temple Inn, where he had to eat his dinners in order to become a lawyer, there was one bottle of wine between 4 students, and everybody said, "Gandhi, come and sit at our table."
The experience was to leave him with a lifelong affection for the British people, even when he was fighting them.
Gandhi said again and again, please remember, your fight is against only the British system. You are not fighting the British.
In 1901, he qualified as a barrister. Soon afterwards, he travelled to South Africa to take up his first proper job. Indians had been arriving in southern Africa for years, imported as cheap labour. They were treated as second-class citizens, not allowed to use the same footpaths as whites, forbidden from travelling on many of the trains. For Gandhi, it was a terrible shock, the first time he'd come face to face with such blatant racism. It jolted him out of his legal career. He began thinking about political ideas and started a newspaper representing Indian opinion.
He was worried about things. He was worried about the society, about the leadership he was giving to people. And he decided that he should start with love, how to win with argument, something you see as morally wrong.
It was now that he developed the philosophy of non-violent protest, for which he still revered. He argued that love will always triumph over hate, good over evil, and truth over falsehood. He called it satyagraha, a Hindu word which translates as the moral force of love and truth. It would dominate his thinking for the rest of his life. It was soon to be seriously tested. In 1913, the South African government introduced new race laws requiring every Indian to register and carry a pass. It was a deliberate attempt to control their movement. Gandhi launched a campaign against it and began a march across the country in open defiance of the law. The numbers quickly swelled. The marchers were under strict instructions to respect the principles of non-violence or satyagraha.
There was no dramatics, there was no attempt to impress people, no attempt even evidently to persuade people. It didn't appear that he was trying to persuade, but he was all the time changing their attitudes.
The protest dragged on month after month. Gandhi became a major figure in South African politics, and the authorities began to ask who this curious figure was. It was nearly 12 months before the government offered a compromise, which gave the Indians some of what they wanted. But by now, it really didn't matter. The Indian people had found their voice.
Gandhi became the voice of the voiceless because he championed issues particularly dear to the less privileged from all walks of life.
Gandhi had found his vocation. It was time to go back to India, where he was convinced his new ideas would help free the country from the British. India, in the early decades of the 20th century, had become a country simmering with discontent. In 1919, it came to a head. In the Punjabi city of Amritsar, a British commander, Brigadier General Reginald Dyer, decided to teach the Indians a lesson. He ordered his troops to open fire on an anti-British rally. For 10 minutes, until their ammunition was exhausted, the soldiers fired into the panic-stricken crowd. Nearly 400 people were killed and more than 1,000 wounded.
The entire nation was shocked. And that made Gandhi, he said, no, from this moment onwards, I am at war with the British government. And I want complete independence for our country.
Gandhi joined the Indian National Congress, the main Indian political party, and called for an all-out campaign against British rule. He was elected one of the leaders. A popular song of the time celebrated his leadership.
He was touching the springs of human behavior by appealing to truth, love and compassion, and it is amazing how a whole nation of millions reacted to his initiatives.
A year later, he launched the first mass movement for Indian independence, a huge campaign of civil disobedience based on the principles of non-violence. His ideas spread like wildfire, carried by word of mouth. He talked of Indian civil servants withdrawing their cooperation, businessmen not paying taxes. Anti-British demonstrations were violently broken up, and in England Gandhi was seen as a dangerous rabble-rouser. Armed with only words and a passionate belief in non-violence, he'd become a serious thorn in the side of the most powerful empire on earth. Just how serious became apparent in 1930. For years, Britain had claimed the exclusive right to produce and sell salt, taxing it to pay for running the country. Gandhi decided to challenge the British monopoly. He set out with a group of followers on a 240-mile march to gather illegally naturally occurring salt along the Indian coast.
It was such an elementary thing, but someone needed that courage to do it. He involved men, women and children with him, youth with him, and it was march which inspired people all over the country to do it.
Along the way, his followers joined in.
He's wanting to show the British the might of one single person, that if we walk together, if we unite, what we can do.
By the time they reached the sea, hundreds of thousands had joined the protest and were illegally gathering salt. The authorities cracked down. Gandhi was seen as a dangerous Indian nationalist and was imprisoned. Winston Churchill, the British Under-Secretary for India, mockingly dismissed him as a half-naked fakir and troublemaker. But the movement Gandhi had started was slipping out of his control. He was now 60 years old. Millions of Indians were growing impatient with his methods. Younger men with more militant ideas were taking over. Gandhi retreated to the countryside and talked of God.
I do dimly perceive that while everything around me is ever changing, there is underlying all that change a living power that is changeless, that holds all together.
He urged his supporters to boycott Western textiles and spin their own fabric. It was, he said, a way to increase Indian self-sufficiency. The spinning wheel became a symbol of independence. Gandhi himself spun for several hours a day.
It was the music of self-sufficiency, self-dependence, self-respect.
Yet for many Indians, independence was never going to be so simple. Even if Britain left peacefully and there was no promise of that, violence had broken out between the country's Hindu and Muslim populations over how to go forward. Gandhi stood accused of ducking the complexities of Indian politics. In 1945, the end of the Second World War ushered in a new government in Britain, finally committed to Indian independence. In India, it sharpened the religious divisions. Fighting broke out between Hindus and Muslims. The Muslim population clustered in the north demanded a country of their own. Hindus, who make up the majority in India, strongly opposed it. The two communities turned on one another in a frenzy of destruction. Gandhi, who'd failed to face up to the depth of Hindu-Muslim hostility, tried to bring peace. But after months of talks, Britain concluded the two communities would never live together comfortably. When independence dawned on August the 15th, 1947, India was divided into a Hindu country in the south and two Muslim states in the north, East and West Pakistan. Gandhi set off on a last desperate peace mission to heal the rift between the two communities. It was too late.
ऐसे हम डर जाएंगे तो सचमुच यहाँ कोई हो जाए तो हमारा हाल कैसा होगा? सुनो 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 सब सुनो कुछ नहीं हुआ है.
But there was a problem. Religious bigotry and violence had turned millions of Indians into refugees. Hindus trapped in Muslim Pakistan trekked south. Muslims moved in the opposite direction. Those who stayed behind were often brutally attacked. Gandhi had misjudged the situation. It was to cost him his life. On January the 30th, 1948, he was in Delhi as the city was racked by Hindu-Muslim fighting. Salim Chatterjee was with him.
As usual, he came to the prayer ground. He slowly walked with the aid of his granddaughters, and as he came and climbed 3 steps, a young man pushed through the crowd. Immediately, the man kneeled, he fired 3 shots. And Gandhi fell with the last words, "Hey Ram," that is, "Oh God." In the crowd, I found all people were weeping, all men, women, children weeping. I could not control my emotion. I wept.
Gandhi had been assassinated by a Hindu fundamentalist. Nathuram Godse was a member of an extremist sect which believed Gandhi's pacifism had played into the hands of Muslims and contributed to the partition of India. The new Indian leader, Jawaharlal Nehru, expressed the nation's shock.
The light has gone out of our lives and there is darkness everywhere. Our beloved leader, Bapu as we called him, the father of the nation, is no more.
In death, Gandhi became a saint. He died one of the great spiritual leaders of the 20th century.